He was standing on my porch as if he had been there 100 times before, but he had not. I stood at my front door, my hand still resting on the knob, and I just looked at him. My father, a man I had not seen in almost 4 years. No call, no text, no warning at all, just standing there in a blue jacket, smiling like we had spoken last Tuesday. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, "just wanted to check on you." And in that instant, something in my chest went cold. My name is Renee Calloway. I am 41. I work in medical billing. I own a small house in Columbus, Ohio. And I have learned the hard way that when someone who vanished from your life suddenly reappears with a warm smile and easy words, they usually want something. That is the part people miss. But I do not miss patterns anymore. I let him in. I made coffee. I sat across from him at my kitchen table. He asked about my job, about my savings, about whether I was still with the same bank. He kept it casual, wrapped inside harmless little talk about the weather and how nice the neighborhood looked. But I noticed the questions. I always noticed the pattern underneath the conversation. So I answered carefully. Just enough to seem open, never enough to give him more than I meant to. He stayed about an hour. Then he hugged me at the door and said, "We should do this more often." I watched his car pull away and stood there for a long moment. People do not show up after 4 years just to check on you. They show up because they need something, or because someone sent them. I just did not know which one it was yet. I did not sleep well that night. I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head. The way he asked about my bank, the way he slipped it in between questions about my job and whether I liked my neighborhood, it did not feel like catching up. It felt like a survey. Here is what you need to understand about my father, Raymond. He left when I was 9. Not dramatically. There was no huge fight, no screaming, no final scene. He just faded out. Calls got shorter, visits got farther apart. Then one day, there were no more visits, and the calls stopped completely. My mother never badmouthed him. She just got quiet whenever his name came up. I grew up mostly with my mother, Carol. She remarried when I was 14. Her new husband, Gary, had a daughter from his first marriage. Her name was Tiffany. She was 2 years younger than me, and from the very first day, she was Carol's favorite. Not Gary's, Carol's. I noticed it, but I never made it into a big thing. I built my own life. I worked hard. I saved money. I bought my house at 36 without help from anyone. Carol and I had a decent relationship. Not close, but decent. We talked maybe twice a month. She knew about my savings account. I had mentioned it once when I was proud of hitting a certain number. I wish I had never said a word. After my father's visit, I called my mother just to chat. A normal conversation, or at least it sounded normal. But near the end, she asked, almost too casually, whether I was still happy with my bank. 2 people. Same question. Same week. That was the moment I started paying closer attention. The next morning I logged into my bank account. Everything looked normal. The balance was exactly where it should have been. No strange transactions. Nothing missing. I checked twice just to be sure, then closed the app and told myself maybe I was being paranoid. But I could not shake it. I work in medical billing. My entire job is catching mistakes other people miss. Small numbers that do not line up. Charges that do not match records. I have been doing it for 15 years, and the one thing that job taught me is this: when something feels off, it usually is. You just have not found the proof yet. So I started paying attention in a different way. I noticed my mother was calling more than usual. 3 times that week. Every call sounded friendly, warm, interested in my life, in a way she had not been in years. It would have felt nice if I had not already been watching. And then I noticed something even stranger. She never asked about Tiffany. That silence mattered. My mother talked about Tiffany constantly. Every single conversation used to include some new update. Tiffany's job, Tiffany's boyfriend, Tiffany's apartment. There was always something. But suddenly Tiffany's name was not coming up at all. And really, the silence was louder than anything she could have said. I did not confront anyone. I did not ask direct questions. I just watched. I waited. And every single morning, I logged into my account. Then, on a Thursday, about 2.5 weeks after my father showed up on my porch, I opened the app before I even got out of bed. I sat up slowly. The balance on the screen was not my balance. It was almost completely empty. I just sat there staring at it, perfectly still. I did not call the bank right away. I know that sounds strange, but I have learned that when something big happens, the first thing you do is breathe. Because the second you react too fast, you lose control of the situation. So I sat on the edge of my bed for about 10 minutes and thought. The account had been drained, not partially, not a few $100s, almost everything. More than $19,000 gone in what looked like 2 transfers, both done 3 days apart. Both pulled into the same external account I did not recognize. Someone had linked an outside account to mine and emptied the money slowly enough not to trigger an immediate fraud alert. That takes planning. I got dressed, drove to my bank in person, and sat down with a manager named Patricia. She pulled up the records. The transfers had been authorized using my online login credentials. Whoever did this had my username, my password, and had answered my security questions correctly. Patricia asked me whether I had ever shared my login with anyone. I had not. But someone close to me had enough access to personal information to guess those security answers. My mother's maiden name, the street I grew up on, my first pet. And the moment that truth landed, I knew exactly where I had to go next. I drove straight to my mother's house. The second she opened the door, I knew. I could see it in her face before a single word was spoken. Her expression changed the moment she saw mine. Not confusion, not surprise, recognition. She knew why I was there. I did not yell. I did not slam anything. I just asked her to sit down. Then I looked at her and asked directly whether she had taken money from my account. She stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she said yes. But the way she said it was almost worse than the confession itself, because she said it like she had a reason that should explain everything away. She said Tiffany needed it. That was her first line. Not sorry. Not I panicked. Not I did not know what else to do. Just Tiffany needed it. That was what she chose to lead with. Apparently Tiffany had been struggling. She was behind on rent for months. Her boyfriend had left. She had lost her job. My mother said she had been watching Tiffany fall apart and did not know what to do. Then she said the part that truly took the air out of my lungs. She had used my money as a down payment on a house for Tiffany. $19,000. My $19,000. The money I had built over years. Years of careful budgeting. Years of long hours. Years of saying no to things I wanted because I was trying to build something solid for myself. Gone. Moved into a house with Tiffany's name on it as if my life's discipline had simply become family property the second someone else wanted it more. My mother looked at me and said she knew I was responsible. She knew I would be okay. She said she planned to pay it back. That was what she offered me. Not permission asked in advance, not honesty, not even remorse in the way a person should show remorse. Just a calm explanation that she had decided I was strong enough to absorb the loss. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, okay. That was all I said. I told her I needed time to process everything. I hugged her at the door. I got in my car, drove home, and called my lawyer. Not because I was angry. I was past anger by then. I was in a place colder than anger, quieter than anger. A place where everything suddenly made sense in the worst possible way. I had not just lost money. I had been studied, counted on, measured, robbed by my own mother. And my father had been sent to case my life like I was a target. I needed to know exactly what I had before I made one single move. My lawyer picked up on the second ring. Her name was Diane. She had handled a contract dispute for me 3 years earlier, and I trusted her completely. I told her everything from the porch visit to the bank records to my mother's confession. She listened without interrupting. Then she went quiet for a second and said, "Renee, do not touch anything yet." I said, "I know." And I did know. Diane told me the first thing I needed was documentation. Everything. Bank records, transfer history, timestamps, the external account number used in the transfers. She said we needed a clean, complete picture before anything else happened. No emotional move. No warning, no improvising, just evidence. So for the next 4 days, that is exactly what I did. I went back to Patricia at the bank and requested a full paper trail. Every transaction. Every login timestamp, every available record tied to the access on my account, every technical breadcrumb that could show where this started and how it happened. Patricia was helpful. and honestly, she seemed genuinely disturbed by what she was seeing. This was not just a family misunderstanding. It looked like theft because it was theft. Then one piece landed harder than the rest. The IP address connected to the login matched my mother's home internet provider. Diane told me that mattered. A lot. It meant this was no vague suspicion anymore. No emotional accusation. No family drama dressed up as confusion. There was a digital footprint. A trail. Something cold and objective. Something that would stand even when tears and excuses started flying. Then I did something I had not originally planned to do. I called my father, not to confront him, not to accuse him, just to listen. I kept my tone light, casual, almost warm. I checked in on him the same way he had checked in on me. And within 10 minutes, he mentioned Tiffany. He said he had heard she was doing better, that she was getting settled into a new place. A new place. He had no idea I had not been told that part yet. That was the slip. I kept my voice completely even and said that was great to hear. Then I ended the call, sat down immediately, and wrote down exactly what he said and the exact time he said it. Every word mattered now. Every detail mattered. When I told Diane, she said, my father's involvement changed the shape of the case. Because now it did not look like my mother acting alone in a desperate impulse. It looked coordinated. It looked planned. My father had shown up asking questions about my job, my savings, my bank. My mother had used the information. Then the money had moved. That sequence mattered. That sequence had weight. Diane said it was time to contact law enforcement, and I told her I was ready. Filing a police report felt surreal. Sitting across from a detective and saying out loud that my own mother had stolen from me was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Not because I doubted the facts. The evidence was clear. But because some quiet part of me had spent my whole life still wanting her to choose me just once, fairly, clearly, without conditions, without comparison, without Tiffany standing in the center of everything. But truth does not soften itself just because it hurts. So I sat up straight and I told the truth. The detective assigned to my case was thorough. He reviewed the bank records, the IP logs, the transfer timeline. He noted my father's visit and the timing of it. Diane had prepared everything neatly, and that mattered too. Facts are stronger when they are organized, stronger when they are impossible to wave away. Within 2 weeks, my mother was formally contacted by law enforcement. She called me that same night crying. She said she did not think it would go this far. She said she never meant to hurt me. She said Tiffany did not know where the money came from. I let her talk. Then I told her calmly that $19,000 does not accidentally move from one account to another. I told her someone had logged into my account using my personal information. I told her it happened more than once. And I told her I had the records to prove every part of it. She went quiet. And after that, the case moved forward. Because the transfers crossed a certain dollar threshold, the case was treated seriously. My mother was charged with felony theft by deception. My father was brought in for questioning regarding his role in gathering my financial information. The house Tiffany had moved into became part of the legal proceedings. There was no drama, no explosive moments, just paperwork, law, and the weight of truth pressing down hard. My mother took a plea deal. She avoided prison time, but she received 3 years of probation, mandatory restitution, and a felony record. The restitution meant I would be paid back in installments over time, but the order was legally binding. My father was not charged criminally. There simply was not enough evidence to prove he knowingly participated in the theft. However, he was named in the civil portion of the case, and that followed him. Tiffany lost the house. That part, as difficult as everything else had been, was especially hard to watch. Tiffany may not have known the full story of where that down payment came from. She may have genuinely believed it was just money from my mother to help her start fresh. But the law does not make exceptions for ignorance. The money was stolen, and no matter how it got there, the house had to go. I did not celebrate the outcome. I know people sometimes expect that, when justice is served, you feel a rush of satisfaction, like you have won something. I didn't. What I felt was exhaustion, sadness, a kind of quiet grief that is hard to explain. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just the betrayal. What I lost wasn't even Tiffany's house, or the $19,000 that had been drained from my savings. I lost something deeper. I lost the version of my mother that I had always hoped she would become someday. The version who would finally see me clearly, choose me fairly, love me with all her heart, without conditions, without secrets, without comparisons to Tiffany. That hope I had carried with me all those years was gone now, and no court order, no restitution could ever bring that back. But what I kept was clarity. I know who I am. I know what I built. I know that, despite everything, I handled the hardest thing I've ever faced without losing my integrity or my composure. I rebuilt my savings, slowly and carefully, just like I had built them the first time. And I made sure that no one could take them from me again. I still live in my house in Columbus. I still go to work every morning, and I still know exactly who I am. I may have lost something invaluable, but I also gained something in the process, something no one can take from me. Thank you for listening. If you found this story helpful, please comment, like, and subscribe. Feel free to share your thoughts or suggest how we can improve. Your feedback means a lot to us.